Welcome in French-speaking countries. This follows an anti-French political sentiment that has taken root in French-speaking African countries in recent years. Well, Kenya will host the France-Africa Summit in Nairobi 2026, and this will be the first time the event will be held outside of France or a francophone African country. France's president, or the French President Emmanuel Macron, and the Kenyan President William Ruto did confirm this plan during the just ended 79th United Nations General Assembly that unfolded in New York. Numerous experts believe that France has nothing to offer the African continent, but let us find out why France is interested in the African nation of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Talking Points. Stay with us. Hello, Kenya Africa and the world. Thank you, Mansley, for joining us on the Fresh Rendezvous over your Pan-African channel for you, Media Africa. Today, we pick interest in the East African nation of which in recent years have made strides. And of course, we've seen this rapprochement between Kenya and other countries of the Western world, including the United States, France, and a host of others. And in the just ended 79th UN General Assembly that took place in New York, we saw that the French President Emmanuel Macron, as well as the President of the East African nation, William the France-Africa Summit will be held in Nairobi. Of course, today we shall be asking ourselves the question, why is France interested in the English-speaking African country, precisely Kenya, amidst the anti-French sentiments that have grown ahead of time in the former French colonies? That is our topic for today, ladies and gentlemen. To evoke this topic of discussion, I'm being joined by FELIX ORWAKA, who is joining us all the way from Kenya, co-chair of the Kenya Coalition on Youth, Peace and Security. Thank you, immensely, FELIX.
Thank you too. Thank you for hosting me. I'm a pleasure being here.
It's always a pleasure to have you in the course of today's program, or the programs on For You Media Africa. Meanwhile, we'll be taking you equally to Nigeria to be joined by SHITTU, who is a digital news editor, who shall be joining us all the way from Lagos. Out of the African continent, we are equally been joined by Dr. STANLEY FONGOD, who is a Pan-Africanist economist and the CEO of CROSTON FINTECH. Thank you immensely, Dr. FONGOD, for joining us.
Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me, and thank my co-panelists for joining as well.
It's a pleasure to have you. Okay, before we dive right into discussions this day, we should just acknowledge the presence of SHITTU before we deep dive into today's topic of discussions. Thank you immensely, SHITTU, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Deep into today's topic of discussion, gentlemen, we shall welcome this report in a bit to comprehend the stakes involved around this recent developments in which Kenya shall be hosting the France-Africa Summit come 2026. A report compiled for us by Buka Marumbi. And when we come back, it shall be time for us to debut this discourse.
Kenya and France have agreed to jointly organize a France-Africa Summit in Nairobi in 2026. The decision was confirmed by French President Emmanuel Macron and Kenyan President William Ruto during this week's 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York. According to a joint statement dated September 25, 2024 on Elysee, the summit will focus on solutions to challenges related to climate, environment, and the reform of the international financial architecture, and as well foster a constructive form of multilateralism. However, all these striking initiatives are not what it seems in reality. The Nigerian public finance consultant, Boubacar Kado Magigi, recently disclosed to Sputnik that France no longer has anything to give and advise African countries, noting that Paris has been humiliated and discredited by the member countries of the Confederation of Sahel States, as he stressed that the Sahel countries have shown the world that they can move towards development without France, which also supports terrorists and drug traffickers on the continent, Boubacar noted. Pointing out another BRICS Africa summit slated for October this year in Russia, ORWAKA noted that the summit will seem to be a great alternative to the France-Africa summit, highlighting that all African countries are just leaning to participate. The summit marks the first occasion the event will be held outside of France or a French-speaking African country. According to the Nigerian public finance consultant, the move from France is because it is no longer welcomed in French-speaking African countries where an anti-French political sentiment has taken root.
Well, you heard that right. According to the Nigerian expert, he states that France is not welcome on the African soil, which is why we have this conversation. And to debate with you, Felix ORWAKA joining us all the way from Kenya. In your perspective, why is France persistently being chased out of French-speaking African countries?
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for that. I'd really love to have your question back again. There's quite a number of noise in the background. I don't know why.
The background noise from your end, but I was asking the question. Okay, I was asking the question from you, Felix ORWAKA, given that you are based in Kenya, and of course Nairobi is expected to host next year, come 2 years from now, the France-Africa Summit that will be the first time in an English-speaking African country. Being based in Kenya, first as an expert, what will you say, why is France persistently being chased out of French-speaking African countries?
Okay, thank you so much for giving me this platform, at least to share my understanding. So one thing which I know is that France has been one of the African colonizers, and it has led to the division of Africa through having our one language. And I can remember we are speaking today of how can Africa speak one language so that it can unite us. And one of the reasons why Africa cannot unite is because of our colonizers. And that's why we have Francophone, Anglophones, and other tribes that comes out as a national language for African countries. I will say this with confidence, and also with a few research that I've done, is that quite a number of the African Francophones do not want the French government or the France government to interact with them because of one, they have what is known as the historical injustices that has happened to their country, with some of them have never been compensated. And when this happens, so this means that quite a number of the generations which are living today, they have unresolved issues with the country. And I think that we have the existing information about the exploitation of African country by the French government, and this has made the Francophones not ready to welcome their colonizers to work with them, because I think whatever is being offered by their colonizer, they believe and trust that they took part in building the country, they took part in ensuring that France has grown. So allow me just say that the reason why you never ever find somebody ready to partner with you when you're ready in the past history, you have been their oppressor. So it will not be easy for the Francophones to host anything that deals with the summit that France is willing to do. And that's why you see that they're trying to look on the bilateral engagement. They're trying to look on the on the Anglophones or any other country that speak different languages to partner with them, because they know that their oppressors are aware of whatever has happened, and due to the lack of compensation, they don't feel ready to partner with them. And I'm saying on this, when it comes to the peace and security angle, it is hard for them to trust anything that is going to be brought by the France or the France government. because they are afraid of maybe the acts of neo-colonization. So neo-colonization, these maybe they're taking advantage of whatever is existing. And let me just